Watch this.
Coming up for you on this Friday edition of the 208. New for you on this Friday, a federal appeals court ended a pause on a section of Idaho's abortion law, enforcement in emergency situations. We're going to explain what this new ruling means. End of an era at the Boise Bicycle Project. A founding and familiar face is ready to step aside. On this Friday, we're catching up with Jimmy Hallyburton at the Boise Bicycle Project. And it was a full week of fantastic feedback from the folks watching at home. You had some big ideas in regards to a big question we asked you about this train. It now finds itself in a Boise yard. 208 starts now. A major development surrounding Idaho's controversial abortion ban. A federal appeals court ruled this week that Idaho's abortion ban may go into full effect. So the order overturns a very narrow block on the enforcement of the law in emergency situations. And we've talked about this on the 208 before. To answer your question, yes, this is the suit that deals with EMTALA. So the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals sided with the state of Idaho and the legislature here in the Gem State by lifting their partial injunction of the abortion ban. And this comes in response to the challenge by the United States Department of Justice, the Biden administration. They say the suit is over the lack of exemptions in the law to protect the health of the mother. So, backstory for you, United States District Court Judge Lynn Windmill granted the preliminary injunction last summer in August. And the injunction then prohibited prosecutors and prosecutions of abortions in Idaho that were provided in emergency situations. So the new court order overturns that, and Judge Lawrence Van Dyke wrote in the order that the legislature made a strong case that the abortion ban does not violate EMTALA. It doesn't interact with it. And EMTALA, or the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, it's a federal law, a federal set of code that requires medical providers at facilities, like hospitals, for example, these facilities that receive Medicare funds, and they treat and stabilize anyone for an emergency regardless of their income. So the argument from the Justice Department was that Idaho's abortion law, it didn't have an exception for those cases. This court disagreed. Fascinating conversation coming up this Sunday morning on Viewpoint. And I'll frame it like this. Perspective seems to be such a scene setter. Just think about where you are in life right now. Think about what you have going on this weekend, the plans with the people that you love in your life, and just getting to enjoy things like a Boise State football Saturday or exploring the great towns around Idaho. Of course, the perfect fall weather has been great as well. But 2 years ago, all that perspective, it looked pretty bleak running into a weekend. Almost exactly 2 years ago, Idaho was in the thick of crisis standards of care, the worst of the worst we saw. The COVID pandemic overwhelmed our health system to the point that it kicked off a very real process of medical staff, equipment, and hospital beds being rationed for those who are just most likely to survive. I want to show you these. Remember these graphs? Well, we track them daily, sometimes hourly. This is the look at all Idaho patients that were hospitalized on a daily basis, every single day. And that huge spike that you see in the middle of your screen was 2 years ago this week. So when we talk about the weekend plans at this time, it was very different at that time. And for perspective on that time 2 years ago, the lessons learned and what we need to know these days, Idaho medical expert Dr. David Pate joins me on Viewpoint on Sunday. And we talked about how the science community is following COVID as the general public, frankly, lost interest. When we look out into, I guess, the long-term outlook, is there, I guess, a chance or maybe an idea that a COVID mutation could be like the Delta virus or the Omicron virus, where maybe COVID activity has been kind of low, below the radar, and all of a sudden, some type of mutation, we see a spike like we did a few years ago? At this point, do we understand the mutations and if that's possible?
We understand them better, but while most of us are not expecting a return to what we saw 2 years ago, it's not out of the question, and it's not out of the question for two reasons. One, infections that we have not protected immunocompromised people. We know that immunocompromised people can be infected with this virus for more than a couple years. And what that virus is doing in them, it's learning and it's changing. And then it can get reintroduced in the population. We think that's where Omicron came from. And so that presents a risk. The other is we have let this spread into a large number of animals, and animals will have that virus mutate in different ways than humans do, and then it could come back into humans, as we've seen with mink. The final concern, the kind of the nightmare situation, and I don't mean to imply that this is likely or expected, but we can't rule out that that virus won't recombine with another and get those potentials to either spread to much more people and overcome that immunity or even cause more severe death. We just have to, we shouldn't be cavalier about it. We don't need to be panicked either.
Dr. Pate and I also dive into the misinformation and the battle that the pandemic presented to the medical community. And also of note, if you haven't heard, Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, they sent out 2 notices over the last 10 days about cases of measles in the Nampa area. And Dr. Pate explains that the community concerns and the reality we face in Idaho with lower vaccination rates. It's a great conversation to have with Dr. Pate. We get into a lot of interesting stuff. You can join us Sunday morning right here on KTVB. All right, heading into the weekend, are you wondering what else is going on around the 208? Well, we have it all for you. Here's the 411 with Sophia Bliss.
The FBI arrested a Proud Boys member in Florida. He was wanted in connection with the January 6th Capitol attacks. Authorities say Christopher Worrell went missing in August, just before he was going to be sentenced for several felonies. According to court documents, the 52-year-old pepper sprayed police during the attack. In May, a judge found Worrell guilty of assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers using a dangerous weapon. He was also found guilty of obstruction of an official proceeding of Congress, entering and remaining in a restricted building or grounds with a deadly or dangerous weapon, engaging in physical violence with a deadly or dangerous weapon, and several other charges. Worrell had been on house arrest after court records show he complained about the treatment at the Washington, D.C. jail. He was allowed to wait for sentencing while on house arrest. Prosecutors asked for a 14-year prison sentence. California Senator Dianne Feinstein passed away at the age of 90. The lawmaker was the longest-serving woman in the U.S. Senate. She served for more than 30 years. Feinstein suffered from a string of health issues. She died last night at her home in Washington, D.C. She was planning to retire at the end of her current term. Senator Mike Crapo issued a statement saying, in part, Dianne Feinstein dedicated her life to public service and never wavered in that commitment. I will always remember her help and her partnership on supporting the Idaho National Lab. She will be missed by many. And Congressman Mike Simpson tweeted, quote, Senator Feinstein spent decades serving the people of California and our country. I will remember our work on the Appropriations Subcommittee on Energy and Water Development and her support for the Idaho National Lab. My thoughts go to Dianne's family and loved ones during this time.
I think the best way to honor his memory will be to continue the work that he was so passionate about. And the best thing that we can do is to continue his example of really truly having our feet firmly planted in community, because that's what he did, that's what he wanted, and that would be the best way to honor him.
Over the weekend, our community lost a tremendous human being, J.J. Saldana. He was one of Idaho's most prominent Latino leaders and good friend to many here at KTVB. He passed away last Friday at the age of 49. His family says they're eager to turn their grief into action and celebrate his life, which was dedicated to serving others, especially in the Latino community. Tomorrow, Boise State, his alma mater, is hosting a community celebration in his honor. It's happening from 12:30 to 2:30 at the Boise State Student Union Simplot Ballroom. You're asked to dress fabulously, and capes are encouraged. If you can't make it, we will be streaming the service on ktvb.com and KTVB+. And that's the 401 on the 208. I'm Sophia Bliss.
After 16 years of pedaling hard, Boise's Jimmy Hallyburton is ready to step away from the Boise Bicycle Project. Happenstance is funny. In fact, it was an unlikely conversation over the 2007 Castle Rock fire that ironically built one of the most robust nonprofits in the state. Talking about it next here on the 208. And we want to hear from you on this Friday. Comments, questions, concerns, haikus, really anything. You can text us, 208-321-5614. Please be sure to include your name and hashtag the 208. We're going to get to some of these at the end of the show.
When you don't like the way that things are, the way around you, you can complain about them. You cannot do anything about it and just put up with it, or you can figure out, how can I personally do something about this? For me, it was building a bike, giving it away to a kid.
Part after part, bike after bike, year after year. But it's more than that.
It is more than a bike. As much as we love bicycles, what we really love is what a bicycle can connect people to.
Which tends to be a connection with each other.
I kind of joke around sometimes that I'm the biggest beneficiary of BBP because I've gotten to interact with thousands and thousands of people over all these years that have taught me new things or inspired me by the work that they've done.
And these people, they make up the Bicycle Project. They're the ones making the mission possible.
That's how you actually make positive change happen.
That's how Jimmy built BBP, where he himself is just a single part of a greater whole.
So first, as many of you just texted in, I'll take off the tie because we're doing the 208. More importantly, though, yes, that's Jimmy Hallyburton, his last day with the Boise Bicycle Project, a place he built 16 years ago when he was only 25 years old. He declared the war on goat heads, and he answered thousands of holiday wish lists, and he helped make Boise a better bicycling community. But a few months ago, Jimmy decided to step away from the place that he built and loved so much. And today, his final day at the Boise Bicycle Project. So we decided to check in with him, see how he's feeling about it.
I feel pretty good. I mean, right now there's a bunch of kids hanging out in front of the shop. They're getting bicycles today. It's cool to see. And I think what makes that so cool is that I know that when I leave on Friday that this is still going to be going on. There's still going to be people coming in here getting bikes. Boise's going to continue to grow to be a stronger bicycle community. And so I feel really lucky. I feel really grateful. I also feel a sense of responsibility to make sure that the community knows that they need to support BBP and the new executive director the same way that they supported me over the last 2 years.
And Jimmy will be focusing on his position on Boise City Council and see what other projects he gets into. And he said that he will continue to support the Boise Bicycle Project, but this time it will be from the other side. And I just want to say, we just touched on it. Do you know how many kids in our community and really across the Treasure Valley, they have a bicycle, they have a way to get around because of the folks like Jimmy at the Boise Bicycle Project. It's a community initiative that means so much to so many people in our area. So Jimmy, from everyone here, thank you so much for what you've done for the community. We know the great work will continue there. What a caboose, Batman! This Boise neighborhood now has a vintage edition, a train caboose, right there. The question now is what to do with it. We want to hear from you about the caboose or really anything. Best way to get in touch with us, you can text us, and you can do that right now. Our phone number is 208-321-5614. Please be sure to include your name and hashtag the 208 with whatever you send our way. And yes, we will get to some of these live at the end of the show.
like the moon when it's coming right over the foothills, just like that. Some fantastic shots from Idaho weather watchers, and keep looking for it tonight, okay, even for this evening. So last time that we had temperatures in the 60s, if you've been hearing about it, we've been talking about these temperatures that are going to be in the 60s, low 60s for this weekend. So when it comes to normal highs, April 9th, the normal high is 60. On March 26th, the normal high is 58. Those are pretty much the highs expected for Saturday and Sunday. So you have to go back to late March, first part of April for those averages. Now, in the way of the last time that we saw temperatures like that, we had a 61 on May the 5th. And on May the 7th, we had a 59, okay? So that was the first part of May. But overall, it's been 5 months since we've seen something like this. And they will go away after that. First of all, our highs today were beautiful. They were in the 70s. If you like this sort of thing, I'll just kind of favor it and just talk about over the next 10 days. After the weekend, the temperatures do come up again. And it looks like we have every indication, quite a bit of agreement in the models that they're going to be at least in the mid-70s throughout next weekend as well. So if you can't do it this weekend, do it the following weekend. Or if you can't do it this weekend, do it the next weekend, right? Because you've got a lot of opportunities for outdoor activities. Futurecast, let me just show you what's happening Saturday here. We've got a line of showers that do move through. And it just shows that some spots could get hit, other spots will not. That's the case for Saturday. Now, as we get into Sunday, watch from here to the southeast. As that low moves a little further to our south, now we get these showers up from the southeast. That's when we really have a better opportunity of seeing some rain showers. And that's going into early Sunday morning. Now, in the way of the showers expected for Saturday, it's not a whole lot. But when we put this ahead and get you into Sunday, watch what happens here. It starts to come up quite a bit. So I think the juicier part of this storm is actually very early Sunday morning for the Southwest Valley. And we'll see that for this weekend. So that's what I have here. See a chance for Saturday, but Sunday is a little better chance. If you look at the highs then after that, 58 for Sunday. Monday at 65 because the sun comes out a little bit. There could be a shower in the morning, but it starts to dry. Into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, as well as Friday. See how these temperatures continue to warm up. In fact, we've got a 65 for Monday. Then we get to about 70 on Tuesday. I'll call it that. And we're right around 70 degrees for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And you saw our 10-day temperature trend a while ago. Those temperatures in the mid-70s just mean a beautiful fall and average temperatures.
All right, Rick. Well, I'm keeping an eye on that low of 44 degrees on Wednesday. That'll be a chilly start to the day. Anyhow, landmarks become landmarks in a variety of ways. For some, it's because of their historical value. Others because something just stands out. And there's one such contender for West Boise wayposts that many of you have seen and are texting me as we speak about. What are we talking about? Well, people in one Boise neighborhood say that they have a new eye catcher, and it looked like it just landed there overnight. It's been a few months, but it is seemingly out of place, and maybe they just didn't notice, but there's a caboose. It's not on the loose. It's firmly planted on Whitewater Boulevard that we told you about on Tuesday. We got so many reactions, and I'm continuing to see them come in live, but for everyone who missed it, let's all get on the same page. Here's the caboose from Andrew Bartline.
It's one of those neighborhoods that longtime residents lose count of the changes.
That street wasn't there, for starters. Either was the park, it used to be an old quarry, so that says something.
Where Whitewater meets Woodlawn, they're on track for a new fold in the fabric.
Probably get distracted, be like, why is there a train there? I don't know.
In the back of the collective mind among the Woodlawn locals, Leo Peregrina shows us his best Sherlock Holmes.
I don't know, I kind of like the quirkiness of it. They put the train tracks down like months before, and then like the caboose appeared randomly. It was really weird.
Months?
It said June 27th. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not normal.
Serendipity rarely is.
Because like you can't just like push it on, obviously. I have no idea.
Leo's on the right track.
Kind of a long story.
But we'd rather hear it straight from the brakeman's mouth.
She's always wanted trains, and
Michael Blood.
I kind of gave it to her as a gift, and she didn't know anything about it while I was looking for the caboose. I purchased it from Yonke Machine Shop down in southeast Boise.
Parked now in a side lot.
Perfect small slice of land.
Behind their current Airbnb listing. You built those railroad tracks?
That's correct. We built them.
Where do you learn to do something like that?
You just had to figure it out.
The internet?
No, the internet doesn't have anything like that, and there's nobody who builds those by hand anymore. It's all done by large machinery.
they used a fair share of that too.
Yeah, you can't just like roll this thing up from the street, huh?
No. It took a lot more work than that.
Do you think they're functional?
I mean, they put a train on it. Like, I wouldn't go pushing on it.
It's a labor of love.
I suppose so, sure.
For Michael's love,
It is expensive yard art.
Janae.
So my whole family's kind of been in the train industry for as long as anyone can remember. Every family reunion we sang, I've been working on the railroad.
Fitting now, their caboose played a historic role for those who worked on the train cars.
This particular one was actually a crew car, so it had quarters for the crew to sleep in, and then they maintained the train from the caboose.
Their focus is on preservation today,
One date night on a Tuesday night, we started the paint.
bringing the rear end up to the forefront.
Definitely shine like a jewel sooner than later.
A couple date nights down the line till the red coat completely covers the car. But in no time, already on track for local landmark status.
Yeah, giving directions will be real easy now. If you get to the train, you've gone too far.
I've never thought of that, actually. That would be really smart.
It's a high bar for date night. Anyways, the couple is not positive on what they will do with the caboose. They say the inside is completely gutted. Since it is right next door to the Airbnb, they are flirting with the idea of making it a short-term rental, but they don't seem married to the idea. So we asked what you thought we should do, and here are some of your answers. Again, they're still coming in on Friday. Elaine Ashley said, my suggestion for the red caboose is to make a mini train museum for their B&B guests to explore. And Jill Lindsay said that the train needs to have a house travel agency. That would be great. Michael Rendell said that the return of the trolley bar would be a great addition to the neighborhood. Mike from the neighborhood. Then we got a couple not so creative ones like Airbnb, coffee shops. They're good ideas, and I think we have enough of those, maybe. I don't know. Then David in David in Boise, I should say, sent us a poem. He says, I think they should let loose and paint the caboose chartreuse or perhaps the color of apple juice. Very good. And finally, I would love a train for our neighbor. Mine has 5 junkie cars, just saying. That's from Anonymous. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens to the Whitewater Caboose. Is that the name we're going with? I like it. 208 back after this. I want to make Justin Core's fashion report, so I'll use the tie for this. All right, here we go. All right, this person says, every once in a while, our communities benefit from the vision and inspiration of an energetic individual who wants to make a difference. Hats off to Jimmy Hallyburton, one of those rare individuals. Yes, a lot of really nice comments about Jimmy Hallyburton. Happy trails. This person says, I'm 50 years old and Boise Bicycle Project touched my life too. Thank you from Dale. This person says, may Jimmy's Boise Bicycle Project legacy be carried on by the equally passionate community members. Thank you so much, Lori, an avid biker. This person says, 208 Fridays, when Brian Holmes is absent, Joe Paris is king. That's the haiku we asked for. Here's the final comment. Yes, Dr. Pate, thanks for joining us. See you Sunday morning. All right.